if you don't know about me, you go to my Discord or anything. Travis runs on Duncan. I talk about Duncan on the regular, so we're good.
Nice, nice. You need like a patch right here or something that's like Duncan, like, the
Duncan, right?
NASCAR drivers.
I,
Ah,
I would
nice.
I would take a sponsorship if they're listening.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, this episode brought to you by Duncan. Maybe not, maybe technically not, but we'll say it is. Um,
Ben Affleck, get your people to call Duncan's people to call our people, and we'll make this happen.
that's right, that's right. And I need to get some people, my goodness. Um, well, delighted on this episode to be talking with someone who has been mentioned in previous episodes, but has never actually been on, sort of a background figure, and that is Mr. Travis Gibb. Travis, thank you for jumping in and joining.
Hi, thanks for having me, Jason. I appreciate being here.
My pleasure, my pleasure. As I mentioned, your ears might have been burning because I've talked with a couple of creators that have hat tipped you as kind of someone that brought them in, which I just love so much. I love that idea of editing, creating, and inviting other people to the party.
Yeah, it's something I learned really on to like bring people in and be part of the community. I believe that people grow together, and you listen to any how I made it in comics. There is always that person who saw that value in someone and brought them along. There's
Mhm.
that's the only consistency you can ever find in any comic. There's always someone who stuck up for somebody who got them to that next point. So I think it's important to be able to level up. I also love to work with my friends. We create these beautiful things. I create several anthologies a year from Cthulhu, Invades, Oz, and Neverland to Holiday Spirits. To even I have a store one that's what's called the Collective, which is just for stores. It's like this one store in Orlando that they publish six like 4-page stories that kind
Mhm.
of preview their books because they can't afford to have all these indie books in. So what they do is they sell that, and then they're like, "Oh, we've got these," and then they'll order them from the creator to get them for their customer instead of carrying all these abundance of indie creators books. They can carry one book as kind of a preview. If you like it, then they'll order the books for you.
Love it. Love it. Well, you mentioned Cthulhu, which I'm glad to hear pronounced. I'm always second guessing my my use of that word. And then
Cthulhu, Cthulhu, yeah, Cthulhu is the proper pronunciation.
cool, cool. That's how I've always said it. Always said it. You also have Garden State Punk, which
Granite State Punk.
has. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Miss Granite State.
You are
I'm
not
sorry.
the first. You are not the first. I
It's
think.
early. Let me get another sip of coffee. Granite State Punk. And okay, sorry, I was mixing in the Zach Braff movie. There it is. There it is.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I just picked it up from the printer yesterday. Drove 7 hours to pick it up, and I'm throwing it in boxes right now to ship it out to all the customers.
Nice, nice. Very cool. Very cool. What led you to the world of comics? How did you decide that this was the space you wanted to be in?
So, as a young kid, I don't. You look about my age. Do you remember when your school would send home like it was like a 3-page like magazine, and
The
it was
troll.
just and it was order to order magazines, right? You'd pick magazines and they'd ship them to you. It was kind of like a thing to
Yep.
order. Well, my grandmother, bless her heart, ordered me Spectacular Spider-Man. And it was the first issue. I could never remember the number, which is so weird because I get asked this every interview I do. It's the one with Sabretooth on the cover. It was black suit Spider-Man and Sabretooth fighting. And I thought Sabretooth was a Spider-Man villain for the longest time because I was so confused. But I fell in love that day, going into the 90s with the X-Men cartoon, living that. I'm from Rochester, New Hampshire, which is right next to Dover, New Hampshire. So do you know what Dover, New Hampshire is relevant in comics?
Dover, New Hampshire. I do not. I do not.
You do not. Well, it's this shirt right here, Teenage
Ah.
Mutant Ninja Turtles. So Kevin Eastman and Peter Lard started Ninja Turtles right there. So it's
Ah, okay.
it's like a suburb. They're right next to each other. Rochester and Dover right next to each other. So growing up, indie comics was a big thing. The
hmm
Ninja Turtles were created here. They were doing signings, and I got to meet them, and it was pretty exciting. And then the '90s boom of Image like just blew up, right? So, and then I'm in New Hampshire, which is also the home of the Tick. So I'm like, oh,
hmm
you literally just create an indie book, bam, rich. That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
It's not the way it works, kids, just for the record, but that is what I was taught to believe growing up. But I just fell in love with the medium. I always wanted to be a comic writer, but I didn't know how to break in because there's no, like we just talked about a minute ago, there's no set path of how to break in.
Hmm.
So I went to film school because I also had a love for film. I was a huge fan of Kevin Smith and Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. All those people, even people like Jerry Bruckheimer, were I was young.
He was big in the 90s.
He
Absolutely.
was, he was, I was a huge Armageddon fan. I have the Criterion edition. But so I came to Florida and I started my film career. And then I just happened to go to Comic Con, and I'm a huge buyer of comics. So from that Spectacular Spider-Man, just to give you an idea, and from X-Men #1, I have every issue of Spider-Man and X-Men from that time. I've never
Nice.
stopped. I've never broke, and that's not counting all the other countless books. I've never stopped reading. So when I was at MegaCon, I bought a whole bunch of indie books. Someone told me, "Hey, if you wrote a 4-page story, you could be in a comic." Called a friend from high school who could draw, and did that, and then it's been crazy ever since. So I did it for a few years in the early 2000s, like from 2004 to 2007. But I had a kid, and I feel being a parent is one of the most important things you can do. So I gave it up to be a kid, to raise a kid, rather, not to be a kid, to raise my child. She's now 21. I know I don't look that old, but I am. Um, and then I just started back up in like 2018 because I have a wonderful wife, and I had 2 issues of a comic completed in just a Google Drive, and I was like, "Hey, look at what I did once." And she was like, "It's really stupid that you have 2 full issues of a comic that you've never done with anything with." And I had no explanation of why I shouldn't have done something with those 2 comics. So it bit the bug, and now we're at like 14 titles for my production company, and that's not counting my work for hire gigs that I work for a whole bunch of different people. Like is an example of that too. Band of Bards. It's a company that I
Nice.
do comics with. There's a Judas. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. So long story there, but that's how I did it, and that's how I got here.
It's a good story. It's a good story. How do you kind of go about selecting the projects that you want to work on and feature?
Ooh, so that's a tough process because my other job, so my day job is I work web design and marketing.
Hmm.
So I have to, it's hard because I have certain loves that don't sell well. Like, so for instance, my first book was Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies. It's a crime book. Crime books just don't sell unless your name's Ed Brubaker. Your crime book is probably not going to sell very well.
Hmm.
Even Dave Lepan's Stray Bullets, it's known because he did a whole bunch of issues, not because it sold well, right? He did
Right.
over 100 issues. You're like, I guess I should read it because he's not going to stop. So and you look at any consistent in the comic genre, crime just doesn't sell. So I I now kind of strategic of what I think is popular as well as what I want to write. But I try to be true to me, right? Like,
Hmm.
talking about Granite State Punk, that's such a niche thing, right? Punk rock in New Hampshire, but I really have a voice in there, and I really think I try to make it edgy and cool. And New Hampshire is a wild state. I don't know if you know anything about New Hampshire, but like they have no seatbelt laws, so you don't have to wear a seatbelt there. They have
Wow.
no state tax. They live free or die. Their slogan is like epic. So it's a weird, really weird state because they have all these crazy ideals, but they don't really follow any of them. They don't even have like they have Republicans, Democrats, but really the Democrats are Republicans who like parks. Like it's not the same as like it is really because they don't want anybody to live there. So it's a wild state. So I kind of write stuff that I think is edgy and cool that can be niche because I don't want to write what everybody else is writing. I have 1,000 superhero stories, but I'll get to them. I'll hopefully be able to play with the best toys in the world from Marvel and DC one day. So I'm going to save those stories for that. Until I'm just going to write cool stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. I'm curious about the frequent flyers that you have, the folks that are sort of go-to people, because as I mentioned, your name has been brought up. So any kind of spotlight that you'd like to shine around on others.
No, I don't like other people. I think the
Oh,
only spotlight should be for me.
that's
No,
right.
no.
That's right.
So the people who like inspire me, Charlie Stickney does White Ash, very good in the Kickstarter space. He's been really good. David Pepos, who's doing his first run on Marvel with Punisher, like that.
Hmm.
He's been a huge inspiration and really helpful for me. A lot of the guys at Mad Cave, if you message any of the writers at Mad Cave, I'm friends with about 70% of them. All of them are top notch people who
Hmm.
care about the community and wanna help you succeed. So any of those guys are really good over there. David Byrne, the former publisher of Scout, is a really good guy. But I tend to surround myself with good people, and we tend to do a lot of things. Like I said, I do 3 anthologies a year, and every year I try to get new people, and we try to expand, and we try to do it because we cannot do this without helping each other out.
Yeah.
If my platform, if my book can help raise somebody out, let's do it. And I help other people out. I'm a writer, so I can't help a lot, but I'm always willing to, if my name will help your book sell, I'll do a 4-page story, no problem. Let me do it. Let me help. Because I think that that's what we need to do in this space with it being so tight knit. And there's not a lot of readership in the Kickstarter community, right? There's probably only about 1,000 people who are backing those. If you're Neil Gaiman, you can probably bring that to 2 or 3,000. But the
Hmm.
average, the highest you're going to get without having a name of Marvel or DC is 1,000, and that's even pretty impossible to be honest. It's really closer to 500. So how do we get more of that 500 to 1,000 people seeing our stuff? And that's help. I've got a fan base of about 250 to 300. So how can I share my fan base with other stuff? And we can grow because I think there's a lot of really cool books out there that we're doing in the indie space. And I'd love to be part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of that question of getting other people to have a look, where can people go to see what you're doing, find out more, maybe even be part of the process?
Yeah. So if you want to be part of anything that I'm doing, that's more of a private conversation. You just got to message me on Facebook or Twitter. I will give anybody a chance for the most part, as long as you have proven that you can do stuff. Your how I'll help you is based on how much you've also done as well. If you're a brand new guy, I'm probably not going to give you a 20-page story, but I may give you a
Right.
page, and then we'll build you up from there. But travisgibb.substack.com is where I'm most fine. That's a great community over there. I share all my work. I also share very personal stuff. So one of the things about me that people like is I tend to be really intimate. So I'll tell you the ups and downs of things, and I'll tell you the real stuff. I'm not just going to say everything is hunky dory, everything is amazing all the time. I want you to go on the journey with me. I like to be very open up, maybe too open, according to my wife, but it's one of the things I like to do. And then orangeconeproductions.com. If you want to order any of the books, they're all there. That's where you can get them.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, did we miss anything in the talk through that you want to make sure to share for listeners?
No, I don't think we missed anything. Just check if you're a Kickstarter guy, do all that. If you are just a comic store, go ahead and order Coins of Judas or Great State Punk. You can order them at your local comic store. They're available. We have new issues coming out all the time. Coins of Judas is coming out April. That's March, April, and May is the next run of Coins of Judas. And Granite State Punk should be about June. But if you let them know, you can add it to your pull and sub list, and they'll get it for you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And you also do conventions.
I do. I do a lot of conventions. I'll be at MegaCon this coming next weekend. I'm doing Baltimore this year. I do a lot of Florida cons, and then I tend to bring up to the Northeast. And we are just talking. I'm not sure if it was on air or off air, but we were talking about Heroes. I'm going to try to get to Heroes this year. So if you know anybody Heroes, tell them Travis Gibb needs to be there.
That's right. That's right. Give the good recommendations, the good
Right, I'll
references,
be
all
there.
the things.
I'll get there. I'll pay for my hotel room. Just get me a table. I'll show up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Travis, thank you so much for the talk, the creativity. Glad to have you back anytime to talk about Kickstarters, projects, creative ideas, board games, or any other sort of creative space that you'd like to share about.
Yeah, anytime you need me or any of your students, if you want to do something, we can absolutely make something happen. I'm always here to help and doing stuff. I believe uh, it is so lucky. I don't know. I don't know if I'm speaking to your class or speaking to a viewer, but whoever's listening to this, one of the greatest things that's happened in this, that Gen X, we get a lot of crap about what Gen X has done or it hasn't done. But one of the things that Gen X did do for the society is we broke those gates, right? Whether it be a missionary who wants to go to Brazil. Back in the day, you'd go to your church and go, "Hey, I feel a call from God and I want to go to Brazil." Like that church would go, "Yes, we'll send you and spend money," or no. Nowadays, you don't have to go to your church. You go to GoFundMe, tell people you want to go to Brazil, see what happens.
Yeah,
Same thing
yeah.
with comics. You can create comics, go to Kickstarter. Yeah, sure, you may not be in Diamond. It may take you a little bit to get to some of those other ranks, but you can make a comic book and people can buy it. Instead of back when I started, I had to buy, make, and then pay for convention after convention after convention to hope someone would buy it. You don't have to do that. You don't have to go to a convention ever in your life. You can just do it. You can go to Webtoons. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
And if you could thank Gen X for one thing, that's the only thing we've done right, as far as I can tell, consistently, is we've broken those doors. Anything is achievable as long as you manage your expectations, which I think is really, really good. And it's so amazing about this world.
Absolutely, absolutely. Totally agree. Yeah, and once more, thanks, and glad to have you back. May the creating continue.
Thank you.